Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Agents of MACE. Today we're talking Ant-Man and the Wasp, second of the Ant-Man movies, and no, it's just second. No, it's the third time we see Ant-Man, but it's second of the Ant-Man movies. So, I guess first thoughts. That's how we'll kick it off.
Wasn't as great as the first one. It's still fun. I mean, you still get the chemistry with all the main characters coming back. You get some really awesome action sequences utilizing, all the technology. But in terms of bringing in Ghost and everything else going on, I don't know. There are certain things with this one that just didn't hit. Granted, the mid-credit scene is probably one of the best setups ever. I'll give it credit for that because it's definitely an emotional one too. It's just like, oh man, I just remember the feeling it gave me seeing it in theaters. Like, yeah,
It's real, yeah.
yeah.
All right, Elisa, how about you?
Watching them back to back, I felt like it was kind of on par with the first one, but they're both, like we discussed in our last episode, they're both like those comfort type movies where it is pleasant. The stakes are not too low, but they're also not super high. And we're hanging out with people that we like for 2 hours, watching them do fun stuff that is ridiculous. And I also thought whenever I was watching Ant-Man and the Wasp this time about how this came out before the pandemic. And all the stuff that Scott is doing under house arrest felt very relatable during the quarantine.
Yes.
Yeah. Side note, if you've never seen the movie House Arrest, go watch it because it's a treat.
I'll have to add it to the list.
I have never heard of it.
Oh my goodness. Jamie Lee Curtis. It's basically the kids get tired of the parents and they put them under house arrest. Lock them in the basement. I think it's a night. Sorry, we're drifting off. But yeah, when you say house arrest, that's the first thing that comes to mind. I think it's a 90s movie.
Oh, well, then I'm definitely going to love it.
1996.
Oh.
Yeah.
The best year for film.
Jennifer Love Hewitt, Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Pollak, Jennifer Tilly.
All right.
Yeah.
It's been
solid.
added.
Great cast.
100%. I guess my first thoughts for this are, I will agree that maybe it's not quite as good as the first one, but it's definitely close. I think the characters are fun. I think the situations in this one are more fun for me. The first one is very much that like torch passing bonding movie, whereas this one is a lot more like, look, all the goofy things that we could get into with somebody that can shrink and grow. I mean, the like Scott in school part of the movie is probably one of my favorite Marvel moments. It was so funny. And then I think that this movie, the first one, we get all these cool like shrinking effects and shrinking moments, but they really stepped it up in the second one. And they had to do so much crazy work, even just for that school scene. They made 2 backpacks when she hands him the backpack. They made a regular sized backpack for her to hold and hand down, and they made him a giant backpack to pick up. And then there's a CG swap when she's handing it to him that you can, if you look really hard and slow it down, you can see. But if you don't, if you're just watching the movie, you would never know. And then same with his when he's going down the stairs to like get to the van.
Mm-hmm.
Those are normal stairs. And then they made him giant stairs and filmed it on a blue screen and then put it in there. And he totally sells it by doing his little like one step at a time. And then he like trips a little at the end. You like watching that. You're just like, how did they do this? Did they like CG his face on a kid or something? No, that was all him. It's crazy. It's insane to think about the amount of work that went into just this dumb joke that like he's half shrunk. Like, but it's, and I wonder
how much of that was debate between let's just CGI all this stuff versus could he have been like, no, let's actually build it a set so I can pull this off.
I think we're
Yeah,
getting to a point now where people realize like there's just something magical about practical effects.
Yeah.
And like
Yes.
even practical mixed with CG is fine, but like full CG just is never gonna look good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And forced perspective is one of those that is like they've been using it since the earliest days of movie making, but it still holds up.
Mhm.
Like it's so effective. Yeah, I love it. And sorry, on whenever Scott's a little kid, one of my most favorite parts in the movie, and maybe one of the funniest parts in any like MCU film, is whenever he gets into the car and Hank asks him if he wants the string cheese in a juice box. He's like, "Wait, do you actually have that?"
How was your day, champ?
I'm sure like his body shifting through like all of these like it probably is taxing on him, and he's probably like
Yeah, I'd be hungry too. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I have never turned down string cheese in a juice box in my life. I go to like my friends' kids' birthday parties. They're like, "We have Capri Sun." I'm like, "You have Capri Sun?
Oh yeah, Capri Suns are.
Bring it over
I mean,
here."
it takes 2 seconds to drink as an adult, but it's still fun.
It's delicious.
Oh man. We also get one of my favorite Marvel side characters, Jimmy Woo. He's here.
Yay!
He's doing stuff. He's working for the man.
Working for the man.
This is pre his station outside of what's it called? Wakeville,
Yeah.
something like that. So yeah, this is before he gets stationed to deal with Wanda. But he's still working for the government, and he is checking in on Scott, just making sure he's not doing anything bad, and also getting his mind blown by some very simple card tricks.
I know we have said this before, but it's worth saying again. Where is the Jimmy Woo TV show?
Yes.
It's like Wellington Paranormal, but it's
Yes.
Jimmy Woo
Oh my-
investigating MCU things.
Thank you. I would want to watch that every single day. Randall Park is an amazing actor. I want him
Incredible.
to
Yeah.
get more stuff.
Seriously, like underutilized. Like, why is he not in more stuff? Could you imagine like some sort of Marvel version of X-Files, but it's Jimmy
Randall?
Woo?
Yes. I want that. I want that so bad. Put like him, even if they like partnered him, if they were like, well, we have to have a superhero, fine. Partner him with like Jessica Jones or like some sort of, maybe like he's the comedy and someone else is like the straightforward or straight man or whatever. Like, do that's fine. Just
I really liked the ones who suggested Darcy, because he and Darcy in WandaVision played off each other very, very well. So yeah, if they teamed up with her, physics, science brain, and his being Randall Park to solve all these mysteries, that would be A+.
yeah. Even like let's get a couple more people and just make like a Marvel Scooby-Doo. Like,
Yes, with a dog.
yeah, Cosmo. Bring him right on in there.
Oh.
Also, since we're still on Randall Park, the last moment we have with him and Scott is complete improv. It's like the best thing ever.
That I did not know that.
Yeah. So
that is amazing.
whenever Jimmy's leaving and he says, "I'll be seeing you again," and then Scott replies, "Where?" That wasn't scripted. Like everything after that, it's all improv.
Oh,
A final plug for Randall Park. If you haven't watched Always Be My Maybe on Netflix, what are you doing with your life?
yes, and did you know
Looks like
that
I got Friday night plans now.
Yeah.
the two songs from that his band performs are literally in my top 10 songs for the past 2 years on Spotify.
Because they're so good.
They are so good, and I am so upset that there's only the two. I'm always like, why didn't they just cut a record deal? They could have made a whole album. I listen to that all the time. Oh, it's so good. Anyway, Randall,
Anyway.
we love you. Come be on our podcast.
So
That'd be
much.
great.
That would be
But
amazing.
we do need to get back to Ant-Man, so
Fine.
whenever you have your own series, we'll do a special. But in Ant-Man and the Wasp, We get a couple movie references. I know we kind of talked about some movie references we got in the first one. And in this one, we get a lot of Big Lebowski going on when he's out and about in his robe. um, and we also get a Jurassic Park reference, which is funny because in the first one, um, man, what did we say last week? It's only been like 15 minutes for us in real time, but it was last week, and I can't remember what I said about Jurassic Park in the first one. But in this, we get two. Oh, do you remember?
No, I thought I did, and then I
okay.
didn't.
We get two Jurassic Park references in this movie. One with the pigeon when its eye pops up alongside the car. And it's a little bit terrifying for us because at the time we don't realize what's happening. And then the second one is we get a clever girl, probably like 3/4 of the way through the movie, which is always just a funny line for anyone to say outside of it being a Jurassic Park reference. So if it's not, I'm making it. It's a Jurassic Park reference. We also get a Baba Yaga, a lot of Baba Yaga, I think 2 or 3. And John Wick has ruined the story of Baba Yaga for me for the rest of my life because that's all I think now.
that was my big thing when I rewatched. So I rewatched Ant-Man and the Wasp like around like before Christmas, and every time that was referenced, I was like, I just gotta go watch John Wick.
Yes. Every time he said Baba Yaga, and then since he's like Russian too, I was just like, oh, John Wick. He's worried John Wick is coming. Ghost is John Wick. Oh, it's a crazy crossover.
Yeah. And another actor who I feel like he's getting a lot of roles in the last few years, but is always great in everything he does. I think his last name is pronounced Desmalshin. Is that it?
Mm-hmm. I think yeah.
But he was great. He was in the Suicide Squad. He's so hilarious in these 2 movies. Yeah, we like you, David Desmalshin.
Basically, like everybody in this movie is all very talented. And I can't wait to see them again in more Marvel stuff. I really hope in Quantumania we get to see like Scott's security team. Like if they don't show up, what are we doing? If we don't get Louise like explaining something at some point. I saw, was it the Screen Rant guy maybe? Some other like Marvel enthusiast was talking, and they said that they wish at the beginning of every movie Luis explains the previous movie. And I was like,
yes.
That would be so great. Like
they missed the boat the biggest whenever they didn't have Luis recap everything up to Endgame.
Yes.
We should have done that.
Yes.
Oh man. That would be something special. I think what I'm pulling for in Quantumania is we do get him explaining something, but we'd never see who he's actually talking to, and that's like the big reveal of like maybe some new character.
I like it, or because we kind of, my theory is that maybe Kang shows up and he's not immediately the bad guy. Maybe it's Kang. Maybe he's like talking to some other, because Kang is the Time Lord, right? So like maybe it's like some future version of Kang that comes back disguised to find out how Ant-Man defeated him, and Luis is telling him. And so it's kind of a joke, but also kind of like, oh, dang it. Now he knows.
I would want it to be Loki. And then at the end, he's like, I know who Kang is.
Yeah. Or it could be bringing Miss Marvel into like the movies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I want to know if we'll see her again before the next movie, Captain Marvel 2 or whatever.
Possibly.
So we'll see. But that would be great. Especially if they brought in somebody like new that we could, I don't know, see further some storyline that we're wondering about. Like Contessa, right? I know I talked about it last time, but I just recently rewatched Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And when she's in that, I was like, I want the story to like progress. Like I
Yeah.
feel like she
Yeah.
just keeps showing up and she's super creepy, but we already know what movie she's leading up to,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
but I feel like they're not doing enough to further that story along. So now it's just kind of like she has some of these people and eventually we'll get a movie where they do something. But like I don't know her end game yet. And I think that, we don't need to know her end game, but if we could know like what she's working towards.
Yeah. Definitely.
This movie pokes fun at the Avengers when they're all hiding in plain sight in their baseball caps and their sunglasses when they're trying to decide how to disguise themselves. And Hank says, "Here's a baseball cap with glasses," and he says, "That's just us at a ball game." Um, Pretty funny, uh, mostly because it's absolutely ludicrous that the Avengers are able to seamlessly blend into a crowd with normal clothes and baseball hats on. Like, no one would be like, wait a second, that's Captain America. He just has a baseball hat on.
Yeah.
Famous
I
people
mean,
do try to do that sometimes, though. It usually doesn't work.
Yeah.
well, yeah. Thing is, you got like Thor, who just honestly doesn't care.
Yeah.
Hmm.
He would rather everyone know he's Thor. Really, the only I would say the only two that would be fine would be Ant-Man and like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You know,
Although
since they're
Scott,
masks.
I mean, now we know he has a podcast and he has an
Yeah.
autobiography. I think he's a little bit more on the like enjoying the fame side because we do see him a lot in his suit with his mask off, whereas
Right.
Spider-Man is very rarely in his suit with his mask off unless
Mm-hmm.
he's either been beaten up or he's with his
He's
two
with
friends,
yeah. Right.
or now he has no friends. Right? Nobody knows who he is, so
No, he's all
that's
alone.
a tale for a different time. Uh, the there's a weird reference. There's actually a couple. Um, One is a big one because I remember reading Civil War, and when the movie came out, I kept waiting for a couple pivotal moments to happen, but they couldn't because they didn't have the rights to some of the stuff. But in the original Civil War, there's a moment where a Thor robot kills Goliath, and it's part of like the event that kicks off the Civil War because Goliath is the first death that
Mm,
has come from this. But it's a Thor robot that was built by Mr. Fantastic, so there's no way for them to work around that. Also, you know, it's too advanced for them to already have a Thor robot in the MCU,
yeah.
so they didn't do any of that. But we also didn't have Goliath yet, and now we know why because Goliath is older. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he never really we don't see him get to be Goliath. We don't see any reference to his suit. The only thing we get reference to is in this and in one of the Iron Man movies.
Mm-hmm.
Iron
Iron
Man,
Man 2.
yeah, he mentions pulling the file on Project Goliath. Um,
Yeah.
so we get that Lawrence Fishburne is uh, Goliath in this movie, and he used to work with Hank, and they had a falling out, and now he's trying to save Ava, who's Ghost, and Ava's father is oh man, I can't read my own writing.
Uh, is it Dr. Star,
Yes, Alex,
Eli.
Elias. Um. Anyway, in the comics, he is an Ant-Man villain called Egghead. Um. Yeah, so we get a surprise Ant-Man villain cameo, but it's cool because it goes back to this like the fact that Hank Pym is like legacy Ant-Man. So
Mm-hmm.
Ant-Man villains would also all be old now
Yeah.
because he's at the end of his career. So they're probably nearing the end of their careers as well. So we have this like reference to, hey, here's this Ant-Man villain in the comics, but now he's older and he does die. So we don't see him again. But it is just sort of this like callback to the fact that, oh, Ant-Man is it's legacy. He's like a legacy hero. He's no longer taking the mantle of Ant-Man. That's now Scott's job. So all of these people that he used to work with and people that he used to fight against, now they're all aging out as well. So it was a cool little nod to the comics. Obviously in the comics he does have an egg-shaped head, and that is a little tacky, so they just went with making him bald, which probably a good choice. Although now, we've said it before, now they're really diving into this, let's make everything look comic accurate. So that would have been real funny to see a guy with an egg head and never mention who he was. I think they say his name like once or twice maybe. So unless you either look it up or are a huge Ant-Man fan, you probably wouldn't have even realized. So if they made his head egg-shaped, you would have been like, that's got to be somebody. Nobody looks like that. So
that's when you pull out the Leo DiCaprio image, pointing at the screen.
Yeah. Oh man. That's the big references that I had for this movie. The CGI I think is for me like the big winner for this movie. Just the stuff they were able to do with it, where they used it in the right places at the right times. They also do a great job with Ghost, like her effect sort of as she's like walking around, is that she's on multiple planes at the same time, so you see all these like ghost images of her. It's how she's able to like phase through stuff. I saw an interesting thing that was saying there's a part where she walks through a door and you see one of her ghost phases like shoves the door open. But the door obviously doesn't open. So it's kind of like maybe she's in different universes, and this could pull in this like multiverse. I mean, I know it's already confusing enough, right? We have time travel, we have multiverse, we have quantum realm, which is really just another universe, but it's really tiny. It's none of it makes sense, but it's fake. That's why it doesn't make sense. But this could potentially be some sort of like she is in all of these different universes at the same time.
Yeah.
Walking towards the same goal. I think it's an interesting theory. I think it would be cool for them to flesh some of this out on like how the universe works and how the multiverse works. And maybe we will get that with Fantastic Four. Since that's a little bit more, Reed Richards is a lot more science heavy. So I'm hoping that when we get Fantastic Four, maybe it is a little bit more like world building, science explaining, or at least, comic book science explaining, because we talked about last week the inconsistencies with how the Ant-Man suit works and mass, and you can throw somebody as Ant-Man, but you can also carry around the tank on a keychain. Like, the mass doesn't make sense with Ant-Man stuff. So it's also possible that we will never get anything explained with the multiverse or quantum realm, and it's just it's very convenient. It's what we need it to be when we need it to be. So that's possible. But hopefully with Kang, I mean, stuff is going to have to start getting answered. It's interesting that Kang is in the quantum realm when Kang is really the time conqueror. So it pulls into this weird, like, is the multiverse, what does the multiverse have to do with time? Are we going to get TVA showing up in this at all? Are they even a thing
Possibly.
anymore? After, I mean, Loki kind of jacked that up. So are we going to get Loki? Is he going to show up?
And see, now I want to rewatch Loki before next week. Because even if you look at some new Quantumania trailers, it does kind of lead that like Kang maybe stuck there, like he's been trying to get out. Maybe something to do with time quantum time space. Who knows? They'll come up with something like trapped him there.
I mean, maybe, and maybe that's what the quantum realm is. The quantum realm doesn't exist other than to capture Kang,
Mm-hmm. That was
because
its whole purpose.
right, because he's so powerful. Like, he literally just, in the comics, I'm trying to remember what comic I just read where Kang was a villain in it. Maybe Dark Avengers or Savage Avengers, I think. Yeah, Savage Avengers, because it's Conan's a Marvel property. It's weird. It doesn't make sense, but Conan teams up with Wolverine and Punisher to fight this wizard, and then Kang shows up to help them. And then there's this whole thing where, like, Conan goes to Kang's like fortress where he keeps all of his collectibles, and Conan sees his sword. So it's supposed to be like, oh, because Kang kills Conan eventually. And then he kills Kang, but then you go into the future and Kang is there, and he's actually gone into the past and he's killed Conan in the past. But then in the past, Conan was actually really old because he's from the future and he fights Kang in the future. Kang makes no sense. So I could see maybe it being like a Kang is just too powerful, so we put him in this prison, and he maybe convinces Scott to help him break out of the prison, like he was put there by some bad people, and he turns Scott against the TVA or turns Scott against somebody and tricks Scott into helping him get out. I don't know. I just can't. I cannot accept that Kang will be the bad guy for this movie, and that's it. There has to be more, especially starting off a new phase with such a big villain.
Mm-hmm. And since one of the future Avengers movies is called like the Kang Dynasty or something like that.
Yeah. So like there's no way that it.
Yeah, this whole different subject. I've seen some interesting fan theories about what this one will actually be, blah blah blah, but we can talk about that later. So apparently this was like a fan theory that they just verified, but in Ant-Man and the Wasp, whenever Hank is getting Janet out of the quantum realm, there is a moment where if you look behind them, I think you can see the city. Like I guess the city that we're going to see in Quantumania.
Mm-hmm.
Did either of you notice that?
Yes. I didn't realize that that's what that it was, though. I thought it was just like, ooh, quantum realm is so layered that there's all this stuff, and like we're supposed to believe that, you know, she's at the bottom of the quantum realm. There's life there. I mean, she takes one of her wings and turns it into like a spear. So clearly she's like defending herself from stuff, and she's surviving in this, wasteland. So it would lead to believe that something else is there. Either other people have been there or other beings have been there. So I'm interested to see if, is the city populated, or is it just Kang? Like it's just Kang's fortress,
right? Well, it's like how many cities are there down? Like,
right?
Like what's the extent of it? Or is it just like one, fortress type area that's potentially populated?
Right.
Maybe it's Kang sending his goons out to try to get the Wasp, and
right.
She teams up with Bill Murray and.
Oh yeah, I forgot he's in it. He's in it somewhere.
He's in it, yeah.
Oh gosh, it's all so confusing, and it probably won't get any less confusing when the movie comes out. But we can hope. Another funny thing that I want to talk about really quick is the detail that they put into Hank's mobile lab in the movie. We know that he can shrink it down, and it has a suitcase thing, and he pulls it around with him. But when we're inside the lab, we see that it is powered by a giant Duracell battery. So that's interesting because remember he talks about how he hasn't figured out how to make things big. And then that's in the first movie, I guess. And then Scott figures out how to make himself big, and seeing the giant Duracell battery and there's a giant paper clip, there's a giant like dial. A lot of the walls are actually like an off-brand Lego if you look at them. So it seems like most of this lab is cobbled together with tiny things that have been blown up, 30 million times their size, these giant things. So I want to know, like, did he figure out how to blow stuff up, or is the entire lab actually tiny and he built the lab tiny and then he just made it big? Like, that still doesn't make sense, because if he didn't know how to make stuff bigger, how did he make it bigger? So it's just it's another one of those weird inconsistencies, but it's just really fun to see all the like little bits and pieces that he used to cobble together this lab that's supposed to be like, oh, that's funny, there's a little thing that's now big.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
make a whole lot of sense.
Well, I'm reading something related to this, and it says the overall goal, according to the production team, is to have fans wondering if they're watching big heroes made small or small sets made big.
I mean, yeah, that's what I'm doing the whole movie.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of which, I love like the little Hot Wheels storage case.
yeah, with the cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was just a genius moment. Like,
It's really funny. It's really well done. The same with when they blow up the
Pez.
the Pez, yeah, the Hello Kitty Pez, or with the bike, when they shrink the bike and it like the pitch of the bike goes up to show that it's tiny now. I was like, that's pretty funny. Again, makes no sense, right? You keep your mass when you're tiny, but if you put 13 cars in a little plastic case, you can carry them around. Makes no sense.
I mean, things like this. I'm going to go off topic for a second, but it's like you get moments like this, and then you get like fights that you get in Man of Steel. Like, why can they not make a good Dragon Ball Z movie? Because this is like Capsule Corp. And if you can do Superman fighting Zod and make it look so awesome, like you can pull together a good.
Yeah, you know what's a good Dragon Ball movie? Have you ever watched the like Chinese made Dragon Ball movie? I don't even think it was called Dragon Ball.
Was it like the fan movie?
No, it's old. I mean, old in Dragon Ball terms.
But it was real life.
Yeah, and it is amazing. It's called Dragon Ball: The Magic Begins. You can watch it for free on YouTube, I believe.
Oh wow!
And it is. You watch that movie and then go watch the whatever that Dragon Ball awful movie that they made in like the early thousands.
Oh yeah, it's now streaming on HBO Max.
Heyo, look, watch those back to back and tell me that old movie is not millions of years ahead of what the new movie is.
Yeah,
it'll blow your mind.
All right.
And it follows the Dragon Ball story, and we're not a Dragon Ball podcast, but I will say really quick, because we're on the topic, and I don't know why we would ever get back on this topic, but when that movie came out, I was in high school, and I was the mascot for our school. We were the Panthers, and so I had this, golden fur mascot costume that they just let me keep in my car. And when we went to see Dragon Ball on opening night, I wore the suit to the movie so that I could go and be like, yeah, I'm a Saiyan monkey, the Super Saiyan monkey. And about a quarter into the movie, I regretted it. I was like, this movie is awful, and now people think that I'm a huge fan, and I'm here to see this movie, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
So anyway, Ant-Man. Again, Ant-Man 2, great movie. We get to see stuff get tiny. We get to see stuff get big. We get to see Randall Park get amazed by magic tricks. We get to see, actually, Scott Lang is pretty good at magic. Some of the tricks are pretty well done. He does the the funny trick at the end where he makes the suit giant, but he's not in it. And then we hear Jimmy go, magic. Good stuff.
How did he do that? Seriously, like,
it's great. It's great.
yeah.
I can't wait. I hope that, the trailers for Quantumania make it seem a little bit more serious. I hope that it keeps some of the like comedy that we've gotten with these other Ant-Man movies, and it doesn't get too serious.
Yeah, like how quick are they actually, like, I'm curious how quick we're going to get to the quantum realm.
Right.
It feels like, is the first act going to just feel rushed? Are we just going to, we're all here with the family and they're tinkering around and then boom, like,
Right.
not in Kansas anymore. Like, let's see what's happening.
Yeah. I feel like they're just gonna get right into it. I feel like they don't have time to not get right into it. So,
do we know the runtime on this yet?
I haven't seen it.
Check. Let's see. Maybe I can find it somewhere.
2 hours and 5 minutes. So, yeah, it's they're probably not gonna play around.
Yeah. I mean, I hope they don't. I hope that they get into it pretty quick because, we're getting to the point now where the series are more the things that they can kind of like play around with and drag out a little bit more. But the movies, it's like, no, you got to get to the point, do the thing, show us the movie, get us ready for the next movie. If you can't do all that and you drag it all out and then you have this rushed ending, it just doesn't hit as well as the series. You can kind of give them a little bit of a break when they get to the end and they rush the last 2 episodes. You're like, weird, you had all this time, but also okay, you spent a lot of time doing backstory or setup or whatever. But in the movies, it's like, yeah, you don't have time to do that. You need to get the ball rolling, especially when you're trying to set up a new phase, right? Like, we're clearly working towards something. Hopefully they're using Kang as sort of like the next Thanos, and it's going to like build and build and build. And it's going to be like, we're going to get another Endgame as the finale for this phase. It's weird that they don't do that for all the phases. I don't know why they wouldn't, introduce a new big bad at the beginning of a phase and work us to the next big bad.
Yeah.
But, it happens. So join us next week. Will be, I guess next week from this will be Quantumania. So hope you're ready.
New Marvel.
Yeah, new stuff finally.
We're so ready.
So yeah, join us for Quantumania, and hopefully we will be able to answer one, if not maybe 2 of the questions that we have posed with what is going on in the Marvel universe. Question for this week. My question would be, do you think Kang is going to be a good guy, or at least feign being a good guy for a little while? Or do you think Kang is going to be bad from the get-go and he's just going to be bad the whole time? They're going to be fighting him the whole phase. I personally think that it would be better storytelling if he was not bad the whole time, and if maybe he, again, I guess he's bad the whole time, but if he tricked them into believing that he was good and working with them, because eventually we're going to have to do Civil War 2, so they're going to have to set some sort of seeds of doubt between each other if they want to do Civil War 2 before too many of these bigger heroes age out of their roles, and they can't replace them, right? Like, so we'll see. Maybe we'll get a mutant. I don't know. We'll let the Marvel gods decide. So on that note, I guess we'll see you all next week.